Good afternoon, everyone. If we may have your attention up here, I know the food is intriguing, and we do want you to help yourself. I'd like to thank Regis and Vicki for providing us with the food this afternoon. So thank you, Regis and Vicki. My name is Laura Hartman, and I am the chair of townofulstercitizens.org. Regis Obajiski is my co-chair, and well, as we affectionately call him, our deputy dog. So I have the wrong glasses on, and I don't know where the other, oh, here they are, so I can see who's in the room. There you all are. There are certainly a good number of people here that we need to thank for coming out, and I'm going to start with the back and come forward. I see our Councilman Rocco Secreto. Thank you for being here. Mr. John Morrow, another councilman, thank you. Did Eric Kitchen sneak in? Okay, didn't want to miss him. We also have, Marge Gallagher. I see you're in the room, our new county comptroller, thank you for being here. And the people that will be on our dais in a little while, Brian Cahill, county legislator for the town of Ulster and the town of Kingston. Jennifer O'Donnell, Hone Strategic. Evelyn Wright, Deputy County Executive. Mr. Jim Quigley, our town supervisor. Dennis Doyle, there you are, Dennis. Director of County Planning, and our County Executive, Mr. Pat Ryan. I'd like to thank all of you for being here today and taking part in this. I have been going door to door in this town for 3 years now, for various campaigns and other things. And one topic that always comes up when you knock on a door is what is happening with Tech City. And it doesn't stop. As many of you in this room know, I ran for office last year, and every door that I went to, I was asked that same question. And Town of Ulster Citizens has taken that question very seriously, that we want to see something happen at Tech City. This piece of property is vital to the health on many levels of our town of Ulster, and the county and the surrounding region. What was once vital is now not, and we decided that we wanted to take a look at what's happening there, what are the obstacles, and see what we can do to help make change, because that's what Town of Ulster Citizens does. And we are very proud of the first project that we tackled, which was the Glide Path power plant, and something that we thought did not really fit with what we wanted to see here in our town. But we worked with our town government and our county government, and we turned it into, collectively, a brand new battery storage facility, the first of its kind in New York State. Town of Ulster has so much to be proud of in that journey and what we did and what we all accomplished together. And there's so many people in this room that were a part of that. So I think that we can do the same thing with Tech City. It's going to take a village to make that change. And we have to keep talking about it and keeping it on the front burner. There are so many issues with that strangle this area. And most importantly, taxes. What was so vital and brought in a lot of money to this area, we now have nothing or very little. And so we're going to look today to examine what some of those problems are and to try to come up with some ideas of steps that we can take to move forward. We're going to hear updates on what has been happening in the past few months, and take a real good look at that and see what steps we can take to keep this forward motion going. Everybody in this area wants to see this succeed and to have something happen there. So we all have the same goal. And if we all work together, I firmly believe, and townofulstercitizens.org believes, that we can make something exciting happen there that will create a whole new area here it would be amazing to see what we could do and what it could bring to us and the kinds of peoples and businesses that we can attract. I know Pat Ryan has an initiative to create jobs in this area. That property would be vital to helping him with that plan. So we're going to look, and we're going to start today, I'm going to get the show rolling, with some students from Columbia University that I met in the fall and talked with them at Tech City, and they chose Tech City as their projects for their fall semester. So we're going to see 2 videos, and they're going to tell us about their work. So I'd like to introduce their advisor and teacher, Kaya Cool, and such a great name because she is very cool. Kaya? And thank you for being here, by the way.
Thank you, Laura. Try to be cool. So just a little introduction of who we are at Columbia University. We're an urban design program, a post-professional program for architects and landscape architects from all over the world. Our group consists of 56 students, 8 of which are here today. So 2 teams that have worked on Tech City over the several months in the fall semester, part of a bigger project that we called the Climate Crisis, Envisioning a Green New Deal for the Hudson Valley. And so we've taken students all over the Hudson Valley, introduced them to many different issues, and have sort of altogether 14 projects that look at ideas of how green jobs, how new technology, how re-looking at agriculture can change the valley and really be a model for a new region in a world that really needs to look closely of how do we save our environment. These 2 teams have really started to look at the site, take these as visions, as the beginning of a conversation of what could happen to the site and as an inspiration for today's conversation. I don't want to say much more, but hand it over to these 2 teams. Just one note, we at Columbia University, we have something called the Hudson Valley Initiative, and that is our commitment to the region to do exactly what we're doing today, which is not go away after 1 semester and student ideas. And I was just telling Evelyn that they're on their way to Africa in 2 weeks. But to really stay involved and continue the conversations with the communities and see where we can help that some of these ideas can be translated into real issues, real plans for the communities that we work with and learn from. And you'll see in the videos that they show that we've learned from many of you already. So Clean It, Green It, do you want to come up to the front and kick it off?
And while they're walking up here, I'm going to acknowledge Manajo Green, a county legislator who snuck in. I noticed, Manajo. There she is. Thank you for being here. Oh, and Lisa Berger, where are you? Thank you for being here. Why don't you use this? Go ahead, take this. Sure. I have to hold the microphone to the sound because we're having sound issues, so. Whatever you want.
Yeah, start with the video.
Is it on here? Where is the video? That video?
Yep.
Is that it?
I just have to see with the camera.
Oh, sorry.
What? Yes. Oh.
Is there any sound?
Where did the sound go to? We messed with so much of it? No. Okay. Got that we had this all set up. Yeah,
There's a dangling thing here.
It's
from
okay.
this. Is that all right?
No, yeah, we're not using this. Right? Yeah, that didn't work. So now, oh wait a minute, so this has to go here. Can you guys speak this at all?
Right, it is. It needs to be plugged in. Just go ahead.
Yeah. No. Oh wait, yes, that was right.
But it is. That's what it is. I see it. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
That's not it. Oh, it's
You know what it is? It's this one down here. Industries have driven.
there you go.
You're good.
Post the Industrial Revolution in the 18th century, industries have driven development in different parts of the world and encouraged lifestyles constantly moving towards better and more efficient means of consumption. Casting the implications of these actions aside, as more and more manufactured communities are deindustrialized, the environmental implications of this massive landscape threaten the future of development. The Green New Deal comes as an opportunity for revitalization of these degraded sites into places of work, production, and recreation. Within the Hudson Valley, a large number of such sites were contaminated by the influence of industries. These sites total up to 130,000 acres of land that could be reused. The IBM Tech City campus in Kingston is one of such sites that was once the economic driver for the whole of Ulster County.
IBM left in the 90s, and while the site went through a number of changes, and at one point in time there was about 7,000 people working on the site. There was a lot of chemicals that were used on the site, particularly TCEs for cleaning and stuff like that, and that's probably the basis for most of the contamination that are out here.
Tech City, I believe, originally was part of IBM's huge presence in Kingston.
The issues surrounding that site are pretty much faded from the news, and no one's really paying much attention to
And
it.
the prime element in the discussion of it was mostly just how to maintain and use those facilities.
IBM left in its place 40 acres of contamination that is mostly concentrated in the middle of the site, with the plume extending towards the northwest. The TCEs that pollute the site can be addressed by giving the site back to the nature. Planting trees, grasses, and other vegetation that can filter contaminants within the soil or in the water table is known as phytoremediation. Specific trees can be used to extract or break down contaminants while improving soil health, sequestering carbon, and restoring the productivity of the land.
其中物理技术呢，主要以转移为主，成本高。那么化学技术容易导致二次污染。那么生物修复当中呢，植物修复技术因为它的经济，包括它的可持续和环境友好，在今年当中备受关注。那么在实现减肥污染的同时，也实现了包括能源、包括旅游的多项的目标。
The built structures on the site were demolished upon confirmation of contamination. The site itself, however, is well located, surrounded by a diverse contextual fabric. In order to reactivate the site, the plume has to be addressed first and becomes the center of our program. Establishing the access points into the site helped us develop circulation patterns within the site as well as connecting the site with the neighborhood, reinforcing existing functions and opening up to further programmatic usage. The result is a green armature that can support different programs on the site, with gardens at the center that can clean and enrich the soil. The first phase of the project introduces phytoremediation and research, along with other public activities on site. The second phase includes incubator spaces and residential areas. Agricultural manufacturing and packaging activities are developed in the third phase. The site becomes a place for continued education and research. Recreation.
I love those two people.
Play. Work and live. The Green New Deal imagines a world with a safe, just, and productive environment. Our project proposes to transform these wastelands into community assets for work, production, and recreation.
And I want you to start your show, right? Is this right? Okay.
Hi everyone, we're students from Columbia University. My name is Pratibha Singh.
My name is Anay Perez.
I'm Dama Pan.
I'm Zixuan Zhang.
And we focused our project on the IBM Tech City side.
Can you speak
So-
louder?
Yes, please. So Hudson Valley is a region that was booming with industries at one point, and a lot of these industries have since been abandoned and have left in their place contamination and that was like caused by the influence of these industries. And our project looked at 130,000 acres of these lands and looked at transforming them into community assets. And the method we used to do that was through phyto remediation. IBM Tech City site was abandoned in 1992 and has since been an economic and environmental liability for the Ulster County. And yeah, so our project used phyto remediation to look at the site to reimagine how it could be cleaned, how we could tackle the contamination, and improve the soil health. At the same time,
Sorry.
and at the same time, we are looking at producing highly skilled as well as low skilled jobs and strengthening the local economy through our interventions.
Next one.
Yes. So we analyzed the site first in a city-town scale. So in the first image, we analyzed the rates of unemployment in the towns that are nearby Kingston, such as Lake Catherine, Lincoln Park, and Kingston itself. After that, we also analyzed the cultural and educational infrastructure because this is one of our main users for our program that we are also trying to propose beside the phytoremediation part. This analysis was developed in a 1 mile and 3.3 miles of radius. And therefore, we analyze also one of the buildings that we are planning to maintain in this site, such as the food manufacturing process that is located near the railroad.
Next.
Based on the analysis that we made and the and the original concept we have, we're trying to apply this on the space. IBM used to be a kind of place that hard to pass through with huge buildings sitting in the middle. Next. Thank you. Or maybe I can do it by myself. Thank you. With huge buildings sitting in the middle, and after it demolished, it's still isolated by the community with plenty of vacant space left. So if we want to revitalize IBM, we start from the contamination. The polluted area located in the middle of our site and with 40 acres size and directing to the southwest. So the first thing we want to do is to create 6 access points combining with surrounding natural, commercial, and residential area. And then we made a connection and invert out to reach the neighborhoods. And we create this green armature to hold different kinds of programs. The phytoremediation garden located in the middle. Can I go closer? Located in the middle, and with a research center nearby. And this is the manufacturing and production area with a greenhouse here. And we also provide some housing for people who work here and all nearby. And this is an incubator that can rent it for the small business. And the sport fields and playgrounds is in the interface to the community. Okay. And then we're trying to put in the timeline.
So we create a 100-year timeline from the past to the future of like what's in the past and how we envision it for the tech city. So quickly run through the history. The site was used to be a dairy farm before IBM took place in the 1950s, and the local economy flourished once and offering a lot of high-paying jobs. However, the situation doesn't last long. After IBM's closure, the environment problem was revealed. IBM left significant traces of contaminants on the site, and then without taking care of it, which left potential health risks to the community, also leave polluted runoff to the surrounding creek. So the IBM also, the current owner owns a large amount in back taxes, which has put the site in debt. So we see opportunities here. First, environmentally, the phytoremediation will clean up the contaminants embedded within the soil, but also provide clean air and sequestering carbon at the same time. And the natural landscape would be the leisure area for the local community. And then we envision the program will also help the economy to stay out of the red when the phytoremediation garden was done. And we are thinking also about like offering a wide range of jobs for people with different education backgrounds, like from maintenance staff to highly skilled educated people like scientists as well. I forgot to zoom in, but this is like how we vision it, with a lot of like green landscapes and housing and research center. And here's a zoom in master plan. So this is the final master plan that we developed based on the new activities and the program. The first part to develop is the phytoremediation part, that is the armature, with the 3 greenhouses that are located in this side and the research center. As we analyze in our city-town scale, the first purpose will be for education and awareness. The second stage to develop is the housing part, and that is located on top, and the incubators that will be available for small retail people from the community. And the third part will be like to reinforce the manufacturing part that is located in this part, that will be supplied by the greenhouses products, and also the phytoremediation part that eventually, when it's clean, we will repurpose it as an agricultural land after several years. We also are trying to combine or to include the nearby community. In this case, this front that is located in the south, like it's a residential zone, so we are trying to focus on these recreational spaces that could be used by this residential area, and also connect the forest that is located in this site by this corridor.
So with the research center and with the Remediation Gardens, we propose to spread awareness and educate the people about the process and how it's going to work. And this is a view of the gardens. This is what we envision it to be. It won't just be the phytoremediation garden, but we try to make it a more holistic educational experience by providing winter gardens and pollinator gardens as well, so that so we can educate people about the plants and the usage and how this could be a good means to treat the problems on the site. This is a view of the research center, where we could invite people to come and take a look at what's happening inside the processes. And this is what it would look like a community participatory discussion that could happen around this topic.
And as a third scenario, it's the greenhouses part that are located in this side, where we are planning to, beside like the production that they will have to like reinforce the food processing center, we are also trying to include this as an educational process, like with the research center of phytoremediation. We are also trying to include this as a center that can explain new types of farming and like this awareness and educational program, and well, also the treatment of the landscape and the sidewalks. And well, this is like a detail of the biodomes that we are proposing as the greenhouses that will have like different kinds of agriculture, like it's floor harvest, vertical harvest, and hydroponics.
So in our project, we are not only reinforce this live and work experience, but we also focusing on the recreational part of the future IBM site. So this imagery was a rendering showing the south part of the IBM site, and currently it was used as a playfield for the community already, so we want to extend the current use, but we want to make it a natural landscape which will emerge with the surrounding wooded area and also emerge the adjacent neighborhoods.
Next.
So this was a conclusion of the final workshop that we had as a part of the final presentation. And so we discussed how we could use our idea as like an urban framework for development further on the site and use the green space as like an armature that could support all the different functions that are happening around it. And yeah, so this is just...
Thank you. Thank you. So we have a second team, and you need that video as well?
Yeah. Can I make a suggestion? Can we move the camera so that the presenters can engage with the audience more rather than staying out of the way of the camera?
Can you
Presenters can stay somewhere else too.
Yeah,
over there. So what we're also going to do is have some Q&A after the second team presented, and maybe the second team can just make sure to not hide behind the camera. Yep.
Probably on the side too is better.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and you can just point to me when you want to screen, when you need something changed.
No, we just do it. We'll just do it ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll be fine. Thank you. So make sure to go towards that side, right?
Yeah, that's as long as we need you on the other side of the main screen.
Okay, so then we can have our...
Then I'll do it.
Yeah?
The Hudson River Valley is seeing new investment since its post-industrial decline.
How are you? Welcome home.
A once thriving material extraction industry transition into technology manufacturing.
Well, it's a bit like watching a part of your past crumble to the ground and being tossed into a heap of rubble, at least if you're a former IBMer who worked at building number 25.
IBM was like a city unto itself, with over 7,000 people. You formed your friendships there, your social life. If you had questions where you needed some expert advice, there were many people there you could turn to. It was the best company in the area to work for in every way.
These industries, catalyzed a network of car-centric living that are being forgotten, are carbon investment destined for the landfill.
We're still talking about IBM and the hole that it left in the community because it closed in 1994 and took 7,000 jobs, which for an area like this is devastating.
The city has been a bummer for this town for about 20 years.
The IBM site currently is filled with construction debris that, if recycled, can potentially save 65% of the energy to produce new construction materials and bring job opportunities to the area.
Why is it stagnant? Why can't we find anything to make it productive for this town? And not only for this town, but that's such an important piece of property for the whole county.
Rethinking our material life cycle, waste can be reduced through symbiotic industrial relationships. Providing a suite of green infrastructure, we can provide the support to foster a new cooperative of sustainable industrial facilities. Our industrial community network seeks to bridge multiple stakeholders to bring a holistic industrial, social, and economic framework. The construction debris arriving to site will be placed through recycling methodologies, then will be processed to produce new materials with advanced technology and material research coupled with construction education programs. All of this will facilitate the production of quality building materials, which will be distributed throughout the region. We can recycle these materials into a new typology of construction, accommodating flexibility and future innovation. Building cradle to cradle.
Hi, my name is Victoria Vono.
Turn it on.
Better? Yeah. Hi, my name is Victoria Vono.
Sophie Lee.
Richie Jew.
Laszlo.
And we focused on looking at the site and trying to reimagine the existing infrastructure that's on the site towards an industrial cooperative. We worked through the framework of the Green New Deal through this studio, but we understand that you guys are also working with a new sustainability plan, which is really exciting. So of our global carbon emissions, 30% is coming from the building industry. Of that, it's 40% of the embodied energy that our materials are holding, as well as 60% coming from the operational energy of our buildings. As you saw in the video, we're looking to reimagine this straight line to a landfill and reincorporate more recycling practices for our building industry. As we understand, the current landscape for a lot of our industries right now is that they're facing a lot of pressure. So we looked at the cooperative model to be able to provide some of these more sustainable technologies for these new industries that are developing, as well as the existing industries that are in the area. So we understand that the Ulster County in particular has a rich history of providing building materials for the region, especially for New York City. But with globalization, a lot of these industries have moved away from the region and even out of the country. And this large network that our materials are traveling is increasing carbon emissions significantly. So we looked at where these industries came from in the area, as well as what sort of jobs came after that. IBM is definitely one of the many, as well as the growing commercial and service industry sector in the valley. So as you all know, I'm sure, IBM left a significant hole in the community with many jobs, as well as a lot of surrounding industry in the strip malls that came with the growth that IBM brought to the area. We see a lot of those in decline or not being properly maintained, and all of these structures have significant carbon investments in these structures. So rather than seeing them fall into decay and seeing all of our carbon investment going directly to a landfill, how can we rethink this linear model into a more cyclical model? So of New York State data that comes from 2017, we see that we are throwing about 62% of our building materials into landfills. That's resulting, just in the Hudson River Valley, 6.6 million tons of CO2 were released in the movement of construction debris to landfills. Landfills that are already reaching capacity, and new landfills are being proposed to be opened. But we could be saving 844,000 tons of CO2 if we went into a recycling process and create hundreds of localized jobs. We also looked at types of legislations that would help incentivize this. There are existing demolition to recycling grants, but we can further incentivize them. Also create carbon sequestration land banks to allow vacant land to be more utilized as softscape, and also create further incentivization for people to upgrade and maintain their homes to higher quality to then reduce these operational energy inputs. So the current IBM site, there's millions of backowed taxes, and there is a process of some of these plots being going under foreclosure, but there are existing tenants still on the site, and we understand that they are still they're still being utilized, the spaces are still operational, so we also wanted to take that into consideration with our project. So we saw that in the perimeter, the building adjacent to the CSX line and the one across from Enterprise Drive, those are still in decent condition and may need further renovation, but the main buildings in the center of the site are in pretty poor shape, and there's also these massive mounds of asbestos that are still there, and as I understand have been there for years. So that's definitely part of our proposal and how we want to address that issue. But the site has tons of resources and has been significantly invested in, and that's why IBM chose this location, is that there's great connection to the existing freight train line, major roads adjacent to it, and IBM built water treatment plants, electrical facilities, water towers. These are all things that can be utilized by new industries on the site.
So this is how we imagined what the former IBM site could be as a building material recycling and manufacturing industry. So the first step, our first tenant on the site will be the recyclers to begin the recycling process for existing materials that are currently on the site and being wasted. And using this, we can start to create our gray water management system that will eventually provide gray water for future tenants to use on site. And in order to generate funds for the initial phases, we're creating a solar panel network in order to sell energy to the grid and also provide clean energy for the future tenants. And so in the middle of the site, we're proposing a solar panel canopy system where they're propped up, and you also see in the diagram. And so right now we can start generating energy on site, and then when we have tenants moving in, they can just move in under the canopies instead of removing anything. And so our site provides facilities for recyclers, material researchers, and administration, construction and demolition training, technological innovations, warehouse distribution for the site, as well, and with the manufacturing in the center. As for the site circulation, we're keeping the automobile services at the perimeter, and we're providing an automated freight trolley system for the manufacturers in the center. And so this configuration will keep the heavier industries on the outside and away from the neighborhood towards the south. So aside from all the programming on the actual site, so across we know that there's the wetland, so we're turning that into preserving it and turning it into a park, which will be accessed through a pedestrian route. The route crosses through the entire site and loops towards Esopus Creek. And so we're going to jump into the specific tenants that we're providing on the site. So first we have the solar canopy tenants. So basically the flexible manufacturers that will be moving under the canopies, and these will be built using the modular materials that we're going to be producing, and so giving them a lot of flexibility and different possible configurations. And this is kind of like the modular panelized construction that we're talking about, and the different materials that could be coming out of it. So basically we're recycling materials and reusing them so that we can take away some of the energy investments in terms of making new building material. So aside from the flexible tenants, we're also supporting the manufacturers with permanent facilities on site. So this is the first one along Enterprise Drive. We have a material research center that's going to be built off of the SUNY New Pulse 3D printing facilities. Here towards the south, we have the administration and co-op services building that's going to be providing spaces for things like tool rental and or machine repair hub affiliated with the repair cafe that exists already in Kingston. And then here we have, towards the south, we have demolition and construction training. That's for both continuing education and also BOCES. And then moving up, we have the tech incubator. So this is going to be for facilitating technological innovations for new materials. And it's right next to the warehouse and distribution with the truck services. And up north, we have a shared kiln facility that's going to have everything from wood seasoning to pottery and glass blowing for material creation and for other members of the community if they want to use it for anything like that. And then that's right across the street from the our stormwater management pond. And so we have some rendering images of what our proposal could look like. So here we have the view right by the 3D printing center, and also showing some of the solar canopies with the flexible modules underneath. This is in the center with manufacturers on both sides. This is along Enterprise Drive with some possible debris that's still being cleaned up, and then also the trolley system that's delivering goods from the warehouse. This is the shared kiln on the left, and the stormwater water management on the right. And then here we have a space in front of the educational spaces like the BOCES, and also kind of like a community space that people can use because it's also closer to the neighborhood. So building Cradle Cradle is our project.
So now we can just do a Q&A about both projects.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have questions for the students?
Have any of you done planning or projection on where water levels are going to be under the conditions of climate change that are pretty much inevitable? Have you looked at, I don't even know what happened when we had the superstorms, Sandy and Irene. Did the place get flooded? I think any kind of a project like this, if you're going to go long term, you need to think about, well, where's the water going to be? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, we did look at some projections, worst case, best case scenario. That's the large reason that we kept the western part of the site here largely natural. That's the floodplain for the Esopus Creek will expand a bit. So we're providing some bioswale areas there and keeping it largely underdeveloped. So that's where our stormwater is sort of shedding towards the creek. The IBM site itself remains pretty dry in all of the projections that I saw. I don't know what it looked like after Irene or Sandy, but from what I saw, most of it was shedding towards the creek.
Is it on? Okay. Did any of you study the chemicals that are in the ground, and if you were to, are they airborne? If any of this, if they get disturbed, can you answer some of those questions?
I can speak to the asbestos. If it's disrupted, then it's airborne and it can be an issue for anyone who's disrupting it. But the rest of the other chemicals.
So the other chemicals on the site were the TCs and the PCs, and when we were looking at fiber remediation as the solution for that, we looked at how these chemicals were organic in nature and they could be tackled by the use of plantation, a specific plantation that can break down those specific contaminants, and that's what we proposed in our design.
On that note, is there any coordination between the remediation effort that's taking place there sorry. So is there any effort or coordination between the remediation efforts that are underway at the site today, and will that work in conjunction with your plan?
So, from our understanding, the remediation effort is basically containing the contaminants at this point and not actually cleaning them up from the soil and from the water table. So, our effort would be to kind of try to clean them up, and it would take a long time to do that, but that's the proposal.
How recent is the data that you're basing the plume cleanup on? Is that very recent data, or is that 10, 15-year-old data? Do you know? And when you say it'll take a long time to clean this up, what is your projection? What's the definition of a long time? 10 years, 50 years?
So depending, that also kind of depends on how well the plants take to the site and how long it takes to grow them and clean them and make the soil suitable for it to grow. So we would assume about 30 to 40 years as a timeline, just for the cleaning of this.
Hi, I just want to note, because I think people here may not realize, there is no current human health exposure to any of the volatile organics that are in the ground. Can't speak to the asbestos, but I don't want people to leave this meeting afraid that they're being contaminated.
I'm very curious about the freight trolley system.
So the freight router system, originally we were thinking about that it could be very well utilized as a system that could be automated, something similar that today Amazon and some of the big warehouses they uses. So it wouldn't be, I guess, operated by human. It would be all automated system and could be carrying heavier loads and could be very well modularized.
Carrying them to where? To the train, or to trucks, or to...
So the system, originally what we were thinking, that between these units and then between the different kind of entities, they're going to be under the solar canopies. Everyone would be able to get access to the system, which ultimately could all end up in a warehouse, which is on the other side of the freight line, which could be, then loaded into the freight and then, go whatever it has to go.
This would be our warehousing space to connect to the freight train.
Yeah, so this is the warehousing system, and then so like the freight line, it would be basically like the trolley system would go all over areas and service everything, and then once the goods they get to the warehouse, then they be able to ship out.
Anyone else with questions for the students?
I got one more quick one. So, thank you. So you said initially that there would be an on-site recycling facility, right? So what happens to that facility once you've recycled all of the construction and demolition debris? Does it stay there and become operational as a business and truck C&D in from other places to recycle it there? Okay.
There are quite a few of existing construction and demolition recyclers in the Valley area, and we would see this site as a potential client for them, but also a new home for them.
And also, we were imagining that this prototype And also we were imagining that the system, if it works, and then depending on how much material would be able to be provided to the recycling center, could be also being used as a prototype and be along the Hudson River Valley, maybe other places, they could use the same system and be part of the larger network.
Have you thought about whether or not the two proposals are compatible and could be merged, or are these two separate alternatives?
I guess in our mind probably could be somewhat, the two proposals could be somewhat merged, but as a studio project where we had it, we didn't necessarily try to combine the two of them, but I think that both of the teams believe that yes, parts of the projects could be merged to make a better case.
Is there any material that any pollution that the phytoremediation wouldn't be able to work on, that the plants would then just be concentrating the pollution, and then that plant material would just need to be taken to a landfill? Or is it all organic pollution that the phyto...
Specifically for this site, the plants would be able to clean it up. And so in case you're working with heavy metals, then that's the case where we need to kind of remove the plant material after it's done the cleaning process. But in this case, it would not be required.
And Gloria, you have a question? Anyone else before we?
I was just curious about the practical execution of it, so the development of it. Would you work with developers? Would this be something that was funded partially by the community? But how practically would it be executed?
Gloria, can you? That's where our interest in a cooperative model really came in, because it seemed like an economic model where community members and small stakeholders of small and large could go in under one entity. And as we understand today, the site has many parcels owned by one owner, so that's also part of our conversation. We didn't really have a straightforward plan, but I think a cooperative model is a really great way to explore the space, because especially when we went out and talked to a lot of community members, there was a growing concern that they didn't want one developer to come in, because there's this sort of lingering pain or suspicion of large companies coming into the area, employing large groups of people and not having any sort of accountability for that. So we're looking for a model where people could really take stake in the site and feel mutually invested in its future.
Next question. Will any of these links be available to us via email so that we can actually review these on our own computers?
Yes, the link that we pulled up was on the Columbia Vimeo website. We can share that maybe with Laura or have it posted somewhere for sure.
We can post it on our townofulstercitizens.org website, which is townofulstercitizens.org.
All of the projects from the studio are there.
And we are also working on a PDF publication that will contain more detail that will be ready in the next few weeks that we can share.
Okay, so thank you all very much for your thoughtfulness to our area, our town, our county, and all your hard work. Thank you. So I'd like to bring up now, switch and move into the next portion of the program. I'd like to ask Pat